Welcome to the multiverse of anime, where impossible matchups become living legends, and every what-if question unlocks a new reality. Today, we explore the question that fans never dared to take seriously until now.
What if the immovable strength of Saitama met the untouchable instinct of Goku? In Universe 7, Goku stood at the precipice of divine mastery. Months had passed since the Tournament of Power, and his training under Wishids had evolved beyond mere technique. Each morning, he practiced in the crystalline chambers of Beerus' planet, where gravity bent to his will and time moved like honey. Ultra Instinct was no longer a transformation he struggled to achieve. It had become his natural state, a perfect harmony between body and consciousness. "Your progress is remarkable," Wits observed, his staff glowing as he monitored Goku's energy patterns. But perfection in martial arts is not just about reaction time, it's about understanding the deeper currents of existence itself. Goku nodded, sweat glistening on his brow as he moved through forms that would shatter mountains. Each punch cut through dimensional barriers, each kick sent ripples across space-time. Yet something felt incomplete, like a symphony missing its final note. Meanwhile, in a reality untouched by gods and tournaments, Saitama sat on a familiar rooftop in Z City. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the urban landscape as he watched clouds drift by with the same expression he wore when facing world-ending threats, mild disinterest tinged with existential boredom. "Sensei," Genos called from below, his mechanical voice echoing up the stairwell. "There's been another monster alert, Class A rank threat approaching the shopping district." Saitama sighed, not bothering to look down. "Can't you handle it? I'm kinda busy doing nothing up here." "The Hero Association specifically requested your presence. Apparently, the creature claims to be the ultimate fusion of every defeated monster's rage." "Sounds original," Saitama muttered, finally standing and stretching. His cape fluttered in the breeze as he prepared for what would undoubtedly be another disappointingly brief encounter. The monster was exactly as advertised, a grotesque amalgamation of teeth, claws, and theatrical declarations about revenge. It lasted exactly one punch, crumbling to dust before its speech about humanity's doom could reach the halfway point. "Seriously," Saitama stared at his fist, then at the settling debris. "I was actually hoping for something that might last 2 punches. But as he turned to walk away, something unprecedented happened. The air around him shimmered, and for the briefest moment, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: anticipation. Not excitement, not fear, but a subtle pull, as if the universe itself was whispering that his next fight might actually matter. Whis paused mid-sentence during their training session, his usual serene expression flickering with concern. His staff's crystal orb darkened, showing swirling patterns that defied interpretation. "Master Whis," Goku lowered his stance, immediately alert. "What's wrong?" "There's a disturbance in the cosmic fabric," Whis murmured, his voice unusually tense. "Something that shouldn't exist according to the fundamental laws governing our multiverse." The disturbance manifested as a crack in reality itself, not visible to mortal eyes, but blazing like a beacon to those who had touched divinity. Through this fissure, impossible energies leaked into their dimension, carrying with them the scent of worlds unknown. "Is it another universe?" Goku asked, his sane instincts already driving him toward the anomaly. "No," Whis replied slowly, "it's something far more intriguing. This portal doesn't lead to another universe within our multiverse. It leads to an entirely different system of reality, one where the rules we understand simply don't apply." Even Lord Beerus, who had been napping on his floating pillow, cracked open one eye. The god of destruction's whiskers twitched as he sensed the foreign energy signature. This energy pattern. Beerus sat up fully, his usual laziness replaced by genuine curiosity. "It's completely alien to our power system. No key signature, no divine essence, no energy we can classify. Yet the raw force behind it," he trailed off, looking genuinely puzzled for the first time in millennia. Goku approached the rift, his enhanced senses probing the space beyond. What he found defied comprehension. Not emptiness, but a presence so simple and so absolute that it made Ultra Instinct seem complex by comparison. "There's someone on the other side," he said softly. "Someone incredibly strong, but different. It's like they've achieved power through a completely different path." In Z City, Saitama was experiencing the other side of this cosmic equation. The pull he'd felt earlier had intensified into an unmistakable summons. Standing before his apartment building, he could see space itself bending, creating a doorway that hummed with otherworldly energy. "Sensei," Genos appeared beside him, sensors going haywire as they tried to analyze the phenomenon. "My systems can't identify this energy source. Its reading is both infinite and non-existent simultaneously."
"Weird?"
Saitama said, but his tone carried a note of genuine interest. "Feels like it's calling to me specifically. Should we contact the Hero Association?" Saitama considered this for exactly half a second. "Nah, this feels personal." He took a step toward the portal, then paused. "If I don't come back in a few hours, tell everyone I went grocery shopping or something." "Sensei, wait!" But Saitama had already stepped through, vanishing into the cosmic unknown with the same casual indifference he brought to everything else. The realm between realities was a place of impossible beauty and terrifying emptiness, neither fully space nor fully void. It existed as a neutral ground where different universal laws could coexist without destroying each other. Here, the purple-black sky stretched infinitely, unmarked by stars or planets, while the ground beneath their feet felt solid despite being composed of crystallized possibility. Goku emerged from his portal first, immediately dropping into a ready stance as his senses tried to map this alien environment. Ultra Instinct activated automatically, silver aura flickering around him as his body prepared for threats it couldn't yet identify. Then Saitama stepped through his own gateway and everything changed. The two warriors stood roughly 50 meters apart, sizing each other up in silence. To any observer, they would have seemed utterly mismatched. Goku and his orange guy muscles taut with barely contained divine energy, silver light dancing around his form like living electricity. Saitama in his simple yellow jumpsuit and white cape, hands casually at his sides, expression mild and slightly curious. But the experienced fighter's eye would have noticed the details, how space itself seemed to bend slightly around Saitama's presence, how Goku's instincts honed through countless battles were screaming warnings about the deceptively ordinary-looking man across from him. "You're strong," Goku said finally, his voice carrying across the emptiness with perfect clarity. It wasn't a question. Saitama nodded once. "Yeah, you too, I guess, though you feel different, like you're using some kind of energy system I don't recognize." "Ki," Goku explained automatically. "Life energy refined through martial arts and spiritual discipline. What about you? I can't sense any energy signature from you at all, but..." He trailed off, struggling to put into words what his instincts were telling him. "I just punch things," Saitama replied with characteristic simplicity. Really hard." Despite the apparent casualness of the exchange, both fighters were acutely aware of the cosmic significance of this moment. This wasn't just a meeting between two powerful individuals. It was a convergence of entirely different approaches to strength, different philosophies of power, different answers to the question of what it meant to be the strongest. "I've been looking for someone who could give me a real fight," Goku admitted, his Saiyan nature overriding diplomatic caution. "Someone who could push me beyond my current limits." Saitama's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Not excitement, but a recognition that perhaps finally he'd found someone who might understand his particular burden. "And I've been looking for someone who could make me feel like a hero again," he said quietly. "Someone who might actually require more than one punch." They stared at each other across the cosmic divide, two souls who had reached the pinnacle of power in their respective realities, both seeking something they'd lost along the way, the thrill of genuine challenge, the satisfaction of meaningful struggle. "One round?" Goku asked, settling into his fighting stance. Saitama cracked his knuckles once. "Sure, but don't blame me if this is over quickly." What followed was not merely a fight, it was a conversation between two different languages of strength, a philosophical debate conducted through fists and fury. Goku moved first, disappearing from sight and reappearing behind Saitama, with a precision strike aimed at pressure points that should have ended the battle instantly. But Saitama simply turned around, casually catching the punch in his palm. "Fast," he noted with mild approval, "but I've seen faster." Goku's eyes widened, not just because his attack had been stopped, but because of how it had been stopped. No counter movement, no complex technique, just absolute certainty of motion, as if Saitama had simply decided that the punch would end in his hand. Ultra Instinct flared brighter as Goku disengaged, launching into a combination that would have destroyed solar systems. Each strike was perfectly placed, each movement a masterpiece of martial arts refined over decades of training. But Saitama met each attack with minimal effort. His responses so economical they bordered on the artistic. "You're holding back," Goku observed during a brief lull, breathing hard despite his divine conditioning. "So are you," Saitama replied, not even winded. "I can tell. There's more where that came from." Goku smiled, the first genuine smile he'd worn in months. "You're right. Let me show you what Ultra Instinct really looks like." The transformation was subtle but profound. Goku's silver aura deepened, becoming less like light and more like liquid starlight flowing around his form. His movements shed the last traces of conscious thought, becoming pure reaction wed to absolute technique. He attacked not as Goku the Saiyan, but as the living embodiment of perfected combat instinct. For the first time since gaining his overwhelming strength, Saitama had to actually try. The battle intensified, their exchanges creating shockwaves that rippled across dimensions. Goku's attacks came from impossible angles, his body moving in ways that defied three-dimensional space. Saitama met each assault with gradually increasing effort, his punches becoming more focused, more precise. "This is incredible," Goku laughed, genuine joy coloring his voice even as they traded earth-shattering blows. "I haven't felt challenged like this in years." Saitama, for his part, was experiencing something he'd almost forgotten, the satisfaction of a fight that required actual technique. For the first time in his heroic career, he was facing an opponent who demanded more than raw power. Goku's speed and skill meant that overwhelming force alone wouldn't be enough. He actually had to think about his attacks, plan his movements, engage with the art of combat rather than simply ending it. But as their battle reached its crescendo, something else was stirring in the space between realities. The entity had been observing long before either warrior arrived in the neutral realm. It existed in the spaces between spaces, feeding on the cosmic energies released by conflicts between powerful beings. But this battle was different. The energies being released were unlike anything it had encountered across countless eons of existence. Goku's ki was familiar enough, divine energy refined through martial discipline, following patterns it had seen countless times across infinite realities. But Saitama's power defied all classification. It wasn't energy in any recognizable sense, but rather something more fundamental, will made manifest. Possibility collapsed into certainty, the universe's rules rewritten through sheer conceptual force. The entity had spent eternity consuming the aftermath of cosmic battles, growing stronger with each conflict. But here was something new, something that might finally allow it to transcend its parasitic existence and become something greater. It began to feed. The first sign of interference came when Genos materialized in the center of their battleground, his body torn and sparking with electrical damage. But this wasn't the Genos from Saitama's reality. This was a version pulled from a timeline where the entity had already begun its harvest, a warning of what was to come. "Sensei," the damaged cyborg whispered before collapsing, his final words carrying across the cosmic void. "It's not just watching anymore." Saitama caught his student's broken form, his expression shifting from mild interest to something far more dangerous. For the first time since arriving in this strange realm, his face showed genuine emotion, not anger, but a focused intensity that made reality itself seem to hold its breath. "Who did this?" he asked quietly. Goku landed beside them, his Ultra Instinct immediately detecting the foreign presence that had infiltrated their battleground. "There's something else here, something that's been feeding off our fight." The entity chose that moment to reveal itself, manifesting as a shifting amalgamation of shadows and stolen starlight. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere, a sound like cosmic background radiation given malevolent purpose. "You have provided me with such exquisite energy," it said, its form flickering between dimensions. "Divine ki and conceptual force, seasoned with the intensity of perfect combat. I have grown beyond my previous limitations thanks to your contribution." "Great," Saitama sighed, gently setting Genos down. "Another weird monster with a god complex. And here I thought I was finally gonna have a decent fight." "This isn't just another monster," Goku warned, his instincts screaming danger signals he'd never experienced before. "This thing, it's been using our battle to evolve. Every technique we've used, every level of power we've reached, it's been studying and adapting." The entity laughed, a sound like dying galaxies. "Adaptation is too crude a term. I have been integrating your strengths into my essence. I now possess the Saiyan's divine techniques and the Bald One's conceptual absolutism. I am what you both could become if you abandon your limiting philosophies." Limiting philosophies? Saitama's tone remained conversational, but the air around him began to distort. Like what? Restraint, purpose, the illusion that strength should serve something greater than itself. The entity's form solidified, taking on aspects of both fighters while remaining fundamentally alien. "I offer you a chance to transcend these weaknesses. Join with me and know power without the burden of consequence." Goku and Saitama exchanged glances, and in that moment an understanding passed between them that transcended words. They had come here seeking a worthy opponent and had found something far more valuable, a kindred spirit who understood the true weight of strength. "Counteroffer," Saitama said, cracking his knuckles. "We team up and punch you really hard until you stop being annoying." "I concur with the bald guy." Goku grinned, his aura flaring back to full intensity, though I would have phrased it more diplomatically. What followed was unlike anything either warrior had experienced. Fighting alongside each other, Goku and Saitama discovered that their contrasting styles created a synergy that multiplied their individual strength exponentially. Goku's Ultra Instinct provided perfect battle coordination, allowing him to anticipate not just the entity's attacks but Saitama's responses, creating openings for devastating combination attacks. Meanwhile, Saitama's absolute approach to combat, his refusal to accept that any obstacle was insurmountable, provided the conceptual framework that allowed their partnership to ignore conventional tactical limitations. But the entity was adapting faster than they had anticipated. With each exchange, it integrated new aspects of their fighting styles, growing more dangerous with every passing moment. "It's learning our techniques as fast as we use them," Goku observed, narrowly dodging a blast that combined his own Kamehameha wave with Saitama's punching force. "Then we need to use techniques it can't copy," Saitama replied, launching himself forward with such force that space-time rippled around his trajectory. The battle evolved into something approaching cosmic warfare. Goku pushed Ultra Instinct beyond its previous boundaries, accessing what he privately called limitless will, a state where instinct and emotion merged into something greater than either alone. His attacks began to carry not just divine energy, but the accumulated weight of every person he'd ever protected, every ideal he'd ever fought for. Saitama, inspired by his partner's evolution, began to explore aspects of his power he'd never fully examined. His punches started to carry conceptual weight, not just the force to destroy matter, but the authority to rewrite the rules that governed reality itself. Their combined assault forced the entity into increasingly desperate adaptations. It began pulling energy from alternate timelines, manifesting versions of itself from realities where it had already achieved victory. The battlefield became crowded with echoes of potential futures, each one showing a different path to universal dominance. But even as they gained ground, both fighters realized they were facing something unprecedented, an enemy that grew stronger not just through battle but through the very concept of conflict itself. The turning point came when the entity, frustrated by its inability to overcome their partnership, decided to strike at what it perceived as their weakness, their connections to others. Reality fractured, and suddenly they were fighting not just the entity but phantom versions of everyone they'd ever cared about. Goku found himself facing twisted echoes of Gohan, Vegeta, and Chich, each one weaponized against his protective instincts. Saitama confronted dark mirrors of Genos, King, and the other heroes he'd slowly learned to care about despite himself. This is its real power, Goku realized, even as he struggled against an illusion of his son. It doesn't just copy abilities, it turns our connections into weapons against us. Good thing I'm used to fighting alone, Saitama muttered, but his usual detachment cracked as he faced a version of Genos that begged him for help while simultaneously attacking him. The battle became internal as much as external. The entity fed on their emotional responses, growing stronger with each moment of doubt, each instant of hesitation. It was a perfect trap to fight effectively. They needed to ignore their bonds with others, but doing so would make them the very thing they were fighting against. It was Goku who found the solution. Drawing on wisdom learned from Master Roshi, King Kai, and Whis, "We're approaching this wrong," he said, catching one of Saitama's punches before it could destroy an illusion of Moomin Rider. "It wants us to choose between power and connection, but what if we refuse to make that choice?" Meaning, we fight not despite our connections, but because of them. Goku's aura shifted, becoming less about personal power and more about the network of relationships that defined his existence. Our strength doesn't come from isolation, it comes from being part of something larger. Saitama considered this, looking at the Phantom Genos with new eyes, so instead of ignoring the illusions, we acknowledge what they represent. Goku nodded. The real source of our power isn't individual strength, it's the responsibility that strength carries. Together, they stopped fighting the illusions and started fighting for them. Their attacks became acts of protection rather than destruction. Their power fueled not by pride or anger, but by the simple determination to create a universe where the people they cared about could exist safely. The entity built around the concept of power as domination found itself unable to process this approach. Its adaptations, designed to counter individual strength, proved useless against collective purpose. As news of the cosmic battle spread through both their realities, heroes and warriors began responding to the crisis. But this wasn't a situation that could be resolved through conventional reinforcements. In Universe 7, Vegeta felt the disturbance through his connection to Goku, while Whis and Beerus monitored the situation with growing concern. The energy readings they were detecting suggested that reality itself was becoming unstable. "We need to intervene," Vegeta declared, his pride warring with genuine concern for his rival. "Negative," Whis replied calmly. "Direct intervention would only provide the entity with additional power sources to corrupt. This is a battle that must be won through understanding, not overwhelming force." Meanwhile, in Z City, the Hero Association scrambled to respond to readings that their instruments couldn't properly interpret. Genos, working with the support team, realized that his connection to Saitama was allowing him to track the battle across dimensional boundaries. "Sensei is fighting something that exists outside our normal understanding of threats," he reported to the assembled heroes. "But he's not fighting alone." King, despite his reputation, found himself serving as an unexpected coordinator. His gaming experience had taught him to think systematically about complex scenarios, and he began organizing the heroes not for direct combat, but for the support roles that might actually make a difference. The real breakthrough came when both groups simultaneously realized that the entity's weakness lay in its fundamental nature. As a being that existed by consuming and corrupting the connections between others, it was vulnerable to genuine cooperation that transcended individual power. Across both realities, heroes began linking their energies, not to fight directly, but to create a network of support that would anchor Goku and Saitama to their respective purposes. The entity, sensing the growing network of connections, made its final play. Instead of trying to corrupt or copy their abilities, it attempted something far more ambitious. It tried to replace them entirely. "Why struggle against inevitability?" it whispered across dimensions. "I can become the hero you aspire to be, but without your limitations. I can protect everything you value without the burden of moral constraints." For a moment, both fighters wavered. The entity's offer was seductive in its simplicity, all the responsibility of strength without the constant struggle to use it wisely. But in that moment of temptation, they felt it. The network of connections reaching across realities, the combined will of everyone who had ever looked to them for protection, inspiration, or simply as proof that good could triumph over evil. "You're missing the point," Saitama said quietly. "The struggle isn't a burden we carry despite our strength. It's the reason our strength matters in the first place." Goku nodded, his aura now encompassing not just his own power, but the reflected strength of everyone who had ever believed in him. A hero without limitations isn't a hero at all, they're just another form of disaster. Their final attack wasn't a technique in any conventional sense. It was a statement, a declaration that power meant nothing without the wisdom to use it well, that strength without purpose was just destruction waiting to happen. Saitama's punch carried the weight of every person he'd ever saved with casual indifference, every monster he'd defeated while wishing for something more meaningful to protect. Goku's ki blast contained the accumulated hopes of everyone who had ever watched him fight and believed that tomorrow could be better than today. The entity built around the concept of power as an end in itself simply ceased to exist when confronted with power as a means to something greater. In the aftermath, as reality slowly repaired itself around them, Goku and Saitama found themselves back in the neutral realm between worlds. But now it felt different, less empty, more like a place of meeting than a void. So Goku said eventually, that happened.
Yeah, Saitama looked around at the slowly stabilizing space. Thanks for the assist. It's been a while since I had a decent partner.
Same here, though I have to ask, how did you get so strong? Not the technique, but the philosophy behind it. Saitama considered the question seriously for the first time in years. I wanted to be the kind of hero I admired when I was a kid. Someone who could solve any problem with effort and determination. I guess I just never stopped believing that was possible. And I wanted to be strong enough to protect everyone I cared about, Goku replied. No matter what threats appeared, no matter how powerful they became. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, two warriors who had found in each other not just a worthy opponent, but a kindred spirit who understood the true weight of overwhelming power. Will we meet again? Goku asked as the portals began to reopen. Probably, Saitama shrugged. The universe seems to have a weird sense of humor about these things. I hope so. I never did get to see your full strength. Saitama paused at the threshold of his portal, looking back with something that might have been a smile. Same here. Next time, no cosmic parasites interrupting. Deal. Epilogue, New Horizons human language this way, and we saw him speaking with hunters. Other than that, I don't remember any other monsters speaking human language, but that doesn't mean they were the only ones. Goku returned to Universe 7 to find Whis waiting with a knowing smile and a cup of tea. How do you feel? The angel asked. Different, Goku admitted, stronger, but not in the way I expected. It's like I understand something about strength that I didn't before. And what's that? That being the strongest isn't about being better than everyone else. It's about being strong enough to help everyone else be their best. In Z City, Saitama resumed his routine of heroic boredom, but with a subtle difference. The fights were still over quickly, the monsters still fell in a single punch, but now there was something else, a sense that his strength served a purpose beyond just ending threats. Sensei, Genoas observed one evening as they walked home from another anticlimactic monster battle. You seemed, more engaged, as if these encounters actually matter to you now. Saitama considered this, maybe they always mattered, I just forgot for a while. Across the multiverse, reality had shifted in subtle ways. Heroes reported strange dreams of silver light and casual determination. Villains found their motivations questioned by internal voices that sounded suspiciously like two very different approaches to heroism. And in the space between realities, where two warriors had discovered that true strength came not from power itself, but from the wisdom to use it well, a new legend was born. Not of the strongest fighter, but of the moment when strength learned what it truly meant to serve. The multiverse of anime had witnessed something unprecedented. Not the victory of one philosophy of power over another, but the synthesis of different approaches to strength into something greater than either could achieve alone. And in that synthesis, a new question was born. Not who is the strongest, but what does it mean to be strong enough? The answer, like all the best truths, would continue to evolve with each new challenge, each new choice to protect rather than dominate, each new decision to be not just powerful but worthy of that power. In the end, perhaps that was the real victory, not the defeat of a cosmic entity, but the discovery that even the strongest could still grow, still learn, still become something better than they were before. The multiverse watched and waited and prepared for whatever impossible question would arise next. To be continued.